Hello, I'm the Ferris Cat. I'm the lead builder on EpicQuestz, and I'm running the project Osgiliath, which is what I'm making a video about today. I'm going to do a house guide for all the people who want to know how to make a house on the project. There are essentially 7 sections to making a medium wealth house on Osgiliath. The first one is how you'll find it and creating the height of the house. The second one is adding the pillars onto the corners. The third one is segmenting it up into floors. The fourth one is adding the windows, arches, doorways, and other detaily little bits like these. The fifth one is adding any extra sections, doing the roof, and changing it to stone brick. The sixth is detailing the outside and bringing it to life. And the seventh, which I'm not going to cover today in this guide or tutorial or whatever you want to call it, is the interior. The style for houses in Osgiliath is derived from a lot of different inspirations, but particularly ones in Dubrovnik, which is where they filmed King's Landing for Game of Thrones. You'll see a lot of the sections in these houses carry through onto the Osgiliath houses, like you can see the bordering of the roofs in some of these, like here, the windows, and the green shutters. We are working on a green shutters texture at the moment that'll hopefully be implemented soon. The roofs are similar in some respects, it depends on the house that you look at, of course. So yeah. So when you're starting off on a Osgiliath house, it'll probably look something a bit like this. So it'll have a lime or light blue. Light blue is for a house with a shop underneath and residence above, whereas lime is just for a house. So either lime or light blue concrete on the floor, and you might find it like this, or you might find it stacked up already. But to stack it up, use weld edit of course, and try not to harm the other houses around it. To maybe about 16-17 blocks typically, but it can go a little bit higher or lower, as long as it's not too much higher or lower than the buildings next to it. So of course, now it's not a prime example, but for example over here, you can see that the house next to it's there, and this one's here. It's not too much taller, but it's not exactly the same either, which is important, because it adds some variety, you know. And then the next step, which is relatively simple, you just need to take each of the corners and set them to, I believe the value is per pillar, which is just the stone brick pillar that we have in the texture pack. So, oh yeah, I forgot to mention at the start that for the Osgiliath project in general, you'll need to use the Gondor pack, the latest version that you can, which at the moment of recording this video, which might actually be before it's released. Well, okay, it will be, but might be quite a while before it's released, depending. Is 0.3.1. So it's just got all the latest blocks and stuff in it. We've done some changes in that, so it makes it look better. And then you go on to step 3, which is adding the segments of the house to make sure that it's not too flat all the way up the wall. So basically what you're going to do is you're going to start at the roof and do something like this. You'll probably want, on most sections, you'll want stairs every 2 blocks, so a stair like that with 1 block in between. I've made this house poorly because it's not odd on all sides, but it should be odd on all sides in all of the ground floor plans that you find throughout the city, so don't worry about that. If there is any outstanding problem with any of the house layouts that are on the floor, you can always contact me or Toppers to rectify them, because we will try our best to make sure that it is as buildable as possible. So you just want to continue this the whole way around, unless there's buildings on the side connecting, in which case you don't need to do it there if the other building's taller, but just make sure that all the spots that you can are done. And then you might want to add something like this. I've made a few variations over here that you can use depending on the situation. You've got ones like this, which you'll need weld edit to do. You've got ones like these, which are just 1 block tall. You've got simple ones like that, which won't be for the tops, like won't be for there, but it'll be more for halfway points in between. Another simple one here, which is again for halfway points in between and not the main one. And then a very common main one used on the top, which is 1.5. It's like this one, but a little more detailed. So you can use a lot of different ones of those in conjunction with each other to make houses that have the same style as each other, but vary quite differently in how they look, which is good. So yeah, you've got, say, the top section there. You might want to put something like chiseled stone brick behind it so that it emphasizes it a little bit more. giving you slow typing lessons here as well. What is it? 98.3. There we go. So yeah, there's your roof border done. We're going to get to the roof later in whatever step it is, step 5 I think. But then you just want to come along here. This house is probably only going to have 2 stories. I might make it a little bit shorter since it's only going to have 2. Like, you can readjust this stuff afterwards, so it doesn't matter if you get it super wrong at the start. Well, okay, super wrong, yes, but a few blocks it doesn't matter because you can readjust it later, like I just did. So now that you have that, you want to add halfway sections, so it'll probably be something like there, I'll say, just with a lot of hesitation in my voice. But something like this, and then maybe slabs across there. It depends on what you think will match. I mean, a lot of the stuff is up to you, so that's why I think it's quite good. And this build is quite big compared to most of the other ones, but it's probably the easiest way for me to explain just because I have such a large space to build on. So we're on to step 4 now, which is adding the windows, the doors, and any little fancy bits that you might want to add onto any parts, depending if they feel too empty, stuff like that. So we'll start off with windows. You want to space these at least 3 blocks in between, so that if you do have any borders on top like this, which are usually 3 wide, but they can be 1 wide as well, if you have any borders in between, they're not touching, because you don't want the borders of the windows to be like an extra one of these, because it gets a bit much. So you've got a few different window designs over here. You can have just that one with a bit of chiseled and trapdoors. You can have the same but with trapdoors on top as well, so it adds a bit of extra colour in the house. You can do them with glass, depending on if they're richer, or you can do them with bars, depending on if they're the ground floor or not. Because in medieval times you wouldn't want to get broken into, especially if you're a shop owner. It's more prevalent if you're a shop owner, because you would have lots of stock in the shop and you wouldn't want that stolen. So yeah. So you can just use the replace tool to do that. Of course you can do it by hand, it doesn't matter. I just find the replace tool easier. Then you can put some trapdoors in these windows here, and you're good to go. And if it turns out that we need more colour later on, you can always do some of those up there and those up there. See, that looks a bit more colourful now. I mean, it's bright lime, but when you change the lime to stone brick later, it will help. Okay, and you might also, there's no veranda on that house, but you might want to feature a veranda, balcony kind of thing that juts out not too much, but just enough so that it's a bit different. You can do it with similar stuff as the window, so you can surround it with stone brick and have like the same kind of bit over the top. You could have a different one, it really depends. And then, you know, something like that. Bring it out and put probably stone brick walls. You might want to do that so that it seems like it's more that. I mean, that kind of looks rubbish, but I'm sure you can make it look good. If we do something like that instead, and put those there, that looks a bit better. And then you can put more windows on the other side of that as well, so continue them across there, up there like that. You can keep those going across the other side. If you're feeling that you don't want a veranda or the veranda won't work in that spot, then you can always add something else. These are, they should only be done rarely, like at minimum once per house probably, because they don't look as good if you overuse them. But for example, let's take green terracotta. Where is it? Actually, green concrete could work. You'll want some trapdoors, you'll want some signs, some buttons. Oh, that's not a sign that I can use, whoops. Pistons, probably too. As weird as it sounds, they can look good. Slabs, yep. Okay, and now it's essentially a window, but it's like a jut-out window. So you've got this here. You probably want to border it with trapdoors. It's almost like a, not terracotta, but like stucco thing maybe. You could do some spruce stairs on the bottom to make it come out like that. Put maybe a piston there with a sign over the front. Some buttons there. And, you know, something like that. Except probably with a better roof, because that roof doesn't look great. That's a bit better. And then you can put whatever you want in the window. You could put glass, you could put trapdoors. Of course the glass doesn't really work there, but that can be solved. And then it on the inside also it creates this little kind of alcove thing that you can frame. But I'm sure the insides will be done in another video, because I'm not the best interior man, so prefer to stick to exteriors. But now that you've got that, you'll want to move down to the bottom floor. It's the same kind of thing, except instead of doing it with windows, well actually no, that's wrong. You do it with windows, but the windows should be smaller and probably not trapdoors. So if you want to line up the windows, you could do a window there and a window there. You'd of course need a front door, but that's fairly standard. You could even turn that into a front door. What a lot of the houses have, or not a lot, but what a lot of them will have is kind of raised up areas like that. So you'll want to make the windows raised up a bit too, so that they match up, of course, but it's kind of just, it creates some interest on the street, so it's not just a flat wall, you've got stairs up there. So let's say you do that, you could make them like that, I don't know, depends on, once again, what you're feeling, what you want to do. Of course, that doesn't look very good, once again, but it's fine. It doesn't really matter that much, it's one of the less important parts of the build. Basically just a way to get to the front door. You'll want to frame the front door with probably some sort of sticky outy bit, so that it's emphasized. You don't necessarily need to, but it's probably better even just something like that, and then you can make it consistent there. There's a cool trick with the windows that you can actually do if you want to. You just do that, and then you do that, and then you've got a skinny window. And then you have a kind of a quite skinny window like that. So it's a bit different. If it's a shop, which it might be, you could also do arches like that on the ground. Be sure to space them out a little bit so that they aren't... We're trying to avoid kind of like this, where it gets like that, because then you get really skinny pillars between the arches, and that doesn't feel quite right usually. You could line the arches up with the windows, which means that you'd have 3 bits in between each of them like that. And then, you know, something like that, you might frame it with pillars and stuff like that. I need to stop saying that, but I'm sure you understand just fine. And then you'll put something above it. Oh, that's not the right button. That's also not how you build that. Whatever, I'm a little off my building game right now, but something... You know, like that, if they go across the whole thing, that'd probably look a bit better. This isn't one unified house as much as it is me showing you concepts of the house, so of course it won't have all of these different things. You just choose to do one of them, or not one of them, but, you know, do one of each, because I'm kind of demonstrating 2 styles here. As stupid as that seems, but, you know, you'll want to put a front door on, and probably make it all the way up to there. So that's kind of house style. And then you want a roof. That's step 5. Yep. So the roof is there's 3 different blocks that we're using for the roof right now. So you've got bricks, you've got and then you've got green and, if I can find them, green and blue tiles. So basically you'll want to do these like with the height, you'll want to vary them between different buildings. If we go back to Osgiliath example, which is the street in Osgiliath that has progress on it, you can see that you've got brick, green, blue, you know, green, brick, green, green, blue kind of thing. So you vary it up. And what you'll want to do is you'll want to select a different roof style as well. So there's two different styles, actually three different styles. You've got one which, like in this, it's much rarer, and it's essentially no roof per se, but just a flat bit on the top where you could maybe have, you know, a few plants or something. But they've got no roof. They're quite rare. You usually won't be asked to build one of those. Then you've got the two other styles, which is you need stairs. For one, it's a full stair roof, and you've got slabs for the other one. So basically, the one that I'll probably do here is stairs, just because it's quite a big house. And basically you do rings of stairs around. I'll probably need to not do the whole way across, just so I can finish this before half an hour, but you do this on and on until you get up to a point. Oh god, this is going to take so long. Stack it. That's the key. Well done. But yeah, so you keep doing this until you reach a certain point. Of course, when you're doing it, you'll have more time, so you'll probably... whoops, wrong thing. You'll probably clean up the roof on the inside a lot, so that it's not so shocking, but basically, for this style of roof, with the stairs, you keep doing this all the way up until a certain point. Certain point is, once again, probably up to you, but you just need to make sure that it kind of fits in with most of the others. The best example of it is here, which was one of the early test houses. It's got kind of things on the corners, but you can see it goes up and then stops at the top about 5.5 blocks above where it starts. So it's not, yeah, great wording there by me, but pretty much you keep going up and up and up and up and up until you reach a point where you think that the roof might be too tall if you keep going up. And then when you reach that, you'll either finish it off with full blocks on top, like this one probably will, so you'll just fill in all the top here, or slabs on the top if you think it can go maybe half higher or something. And then you could border the corners with, you know, stone brick stairs like that if you wanted to. So just give it a little something more, and that'd go the whole way around, so I can, you know, say, copy that and flip it wherever the midpoint of the house is. Probably here. Yep. And there you go. And then once you've done that, with particularly this roof, you might want to add some dormers into the roof, which will just be made out of, well, at this stage you'd still make them out of the same, you know, lime concrete. But essentially you just pick spots in the roof. It should be symmetrical, so you don't want to be asymmetrical for this one. Although most of the houses in general, for everything else besides the roof, will probably be asymmetric. So like this balcony, it'd probably be off to one side here, and you'd have windows the whole way across. Or if you had arches, they wouldn't go the whole way across. They'd probably stop because, you know, maybe only half the bottom floor is a workshop. You know, we don't know these kind of things. And that's a bit of the fun of designing a house, is you get to decide that. But so basically you want something like that. Definitely the same roof color. You might want to use slabs for this to make it a little, I don't know, less steep. And then you do something like that, where it kind of, because you don't want to show that, because it's a bit protrudy, it comes out a bit much, pretty much. So you do something like that, and you just tie it into the regular roof, make sure that it fits, and then you might add some details to those. We haven't, well actually we have done to those windows, but you might like add some shutters, kind of things. Do some of them closed, some of them open. You know, that's a bit interesting, feels like someone lives there. So now you've got those as well. That's step 5 done. Actually, no, it's not. Part of step 5 is also what you're going to do is finally get rid of the awful color. So basically you're going to replace whichever concrete, whether you have light blue or lime, to about 70 to 80% regular stone brick and 30% or 20% cracked stone brick. So then you get something like that. And I know it's not got much color yet, but we're going to fix that in a minute when we go into step 6, which is the final step for this, and it's just detailing. So basically what you do, I'll probably have to go all the way over here so you can actually see it now for detailing, is you'll want to add things like plants. If you've got windows like this, you'll add shutters if you haven't done them already. If it's got a shop underneath, you might want to add a market stall, little kind of overhang thing. Do that with bright colors, it brings a lot. You might want to add some wood components, like this is a bakery here, so it's got wood stands out the front. Plants is a definite yes, they add a lot of color. Maybe a flag if you've got a little roof thing like this, you could add a flag on the top. Also something that I missed out on, every house should have a chimney. It should be, I'd assume this would be logical, but towards the edge of the house, probably a little something like that. Just finish it off, relatively simple, it doesn't need too much on it, just enough to recognize that it's a chimney poking out, and enough that, you know, you'd be able to actually use it probably, if it was a real house. And then you could add, I don't know, if you want to add some even extra stuff, you could be like, well, this house could be, you know, getting some renovating done to it, so it could have scaffolding, there could be like, you know, there's a market here, so they could have shelving, you could block off a little thing with a creepy iron bar in a dark alley. It's all that kind of stuff, basically. So let's try out some of it here. What you'll want to do is grab some grass first thing, probably, actually. Some of those, so some trapdoors, and you can, this is another poor example because it's got slabs there, but you can fix that like that. And you can border it with trapdoors, like a little grass kind of green box, and then you'll probably use some leaves, some vines, and then type of flower, probably a tall flower. So, for example, a rose bush is a good choice, in my opinion, always. And you can, it's not very bright here because I need to change the biome. So many mistakes in a tutorial. But yeah, so you get some of that color in. You can add, if you really want to, like, I mean, there could be a Gondor Patriot. You could add some banners if my Optifine stops glitching out, like there and there, kind of thing, or probably actually more likely there and there. Just a bit of stuff to fill up the walls, pretty much. So you just want to not necessarily fill it up all the way, but just provide enough stuff so that it's not so, well, not discolored, but just uncolourful. You know, you could add some grass down on the street, speckle it into that, and then add some climbing vines on the wall if you wanted to, which are, in my opinion, always a good touch. They really add something to the build. You can just kind of make them snake their way up to something like that and grab onto that. You know, maybe you could go off around the corner too, you know, have some viney fun. That's always a good thing, whether it's watching vines or whether it's making vines on houses in Osgiliath. It'll be fun either way. You can add some actual vines to that. You know, just make it very planty. And stuff like that. And now it feels much more lived in already. Of course, you'd, this is also the time to add in anything you missed in the last step. Very good tutorial way to do things. Just add in stuff you missed. That's the last step, yes. But for example, you know, a door there so that you can block out strangers, because all those strangers spying on your balconies, you know. You might add a pot plant in the balcony, so you can do that by having a pot, and then a dead bush, and the leaves of your choice. I'll go with jungle for this one. you know, you can just do that, put that in there, and then you've got this bushy pot plant because it's got, you know, little twigs there. So yeah, that's cool. And then if it's a market stall, like down here, you can get some fences, a fence gate. You probably want to do these two different ones. You can do it oak and spruce or spruce and oak, like it doesn't matter which ones you do really. And then you just want to do a market stall, something like this, or like a little canopy that comes off. You can do the canopies on houses that aren't markets, but they're just more common on markets. You know, you might choose a color. Usually choose a brighter color and then like a terracotta color. So for example, you might do orange and cyan. You know, it might seem a bit out there now, but it could look good. So you just do that, 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 that. Oh, messed it up because I'm just so big-brained. Yeah, you know, something like that, and then you can put some gates there, just to add some extra little something. If you have something like, you know, these here, if you can't make something look good there, then you can actually just add a market stall there. It's a really good way to remove the need for anything that looks overly horrendous there, if you can't seem to make it good. And then, you know, we've got our kind of amalgamation between a shop and an Osgiliath house. You can always, again, like I said at the start, you can change things whenever you see fit. If it doesn't work, you know, just do that. For example, move the door over as well. That's probably a good idea. But yeah, so there you go. You know, you've got some life in the house, you've got some colours, some interest, stuff like that. You've got a chimney, and all that. And basically, once you make one house, you want to try to make sure that your next house, when you make it, you might use the same principle of thought, like this tutorial and the 7 stages, but you might then switch out some of the assets that you use. Assets like these, you might use a different one, you might use different windows. Like if you come over here and look at this house, it's got iron bar windows because there's a shop down there, you might use a different one of these. Put the arches in different spots, you could add some of these fancy things, which are just typically for when there's extra space. Like this house, there's 3 floors. And we didn't need windows on this one, so we didn't have them there. If you go inside, it works fine. You've got a few windows on the side, but you've got nothing over here. And they're also, actually, I'll touch on this in my extremely messy tutorial. These are a really good way to add color if you use granite. Like, look, you've got splashes of red. It works pretty well, in my opinion. I mean, that's only because the granite texture has changed, but still. And then you'll want to, just before you finish your house, you'll want to do a rough plan of all the rooms inside. It doesn't have to be anything concrete, pardon the pun, but you just want to make sure that the floor level and everything is set. Spruce planks is what the flooring is. And there you go, you've got your kind of, there'd be a separation here of some sort and that kind of thing. And now I'll probably just use this other house over here as an example, but say if you want to build one of those less steep roofs, like the one over there, or not like the one over there, you'll probably want to use slabs and full blocks, and then you'll do the roof something like this, alternating between slabs and full blocks the whole way up, until you reach the top. Now these ones, they don't do what the other ones do and stop at a certain point. They'd usually just continue going up until you hit the top where they all meet together. Building the roof intensifies, but yeah, so you just continue this the whole way up. And it takes quite a while, just like the other one, but at least this roof is smaller. You can kind of, you can get away with fudging these roofs a bit if they don't quite work, but it's not something I'd encourage. You just keep going. Every block after a slab is a full block, and every block after a full block is a slab. So no exceptions to the rule, just so that it stays like a proper roof. Now this is the stage where you might have to fudge it a bit. You could probably just stop there if you really wanted to. Usually leave out the last block in the middle. Like, you usually wouldn't do that. You can if you want to, but sometimes it looks a bit odd, so most of the time you just leave it like that. Yeah, and those tend to work out fine. They're a little easier to do on angles than the stair one, because stairs are a bit finicky on angles, and we have a lot of angular buildings, like, you know, this one for example. Or if we go back to where we to where the street is, you can see that nearly all the buildings are angled in some way. So, for example, a house like this with a roof like this is harder to do than a house on that same angle, pretty much, with a roof like this. But yeah, you see how you leave off the top, and this has a big flat area. You might get a house with a tower, but that's probably not very likely because they're a bit harder to make. But yeah, so we have pretty much a whole area here planned out, some houses that need to be edited, some that need to be approved, some that are floating, some that need to be moved down. It's all pretty much me to blame because I've been very busy, but we should be able to get some good progress done soon if we all band together and do houses. Thank you all for watching. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. You can find me on the server or on Discord, and you can expect more videos from me and other members of the team in the near future. Bye.